The Vrakthar had conquered 17 worlds before they found Earth. They were the most feared species in the known galaxy, standing 3 meters tall with armored scales that could stop plasma fire and claws that could tear through ship hulls. Their 6 eyes could see in complete darkness, and their hearing was so sharp they could detect a heartbeat from 100 meters away. For 10,000 years, they had been the ultimate predators, and no species had ever challenged their rule. Commander Vrek stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the blue planet grow larger in the viewscreen. His intelligence officers had been studying Earth for 3 standard years, and they had brought back fascinating reports. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were soft, weak creatures with no natural weapons. They had no claws, no fangs, no venom, no armor. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear beyond a limited range. They were slow, fragile, and utterly pathetic by any standard measure. "This will be the easiest conquest yet," said Subcommander Threx, studying the data streams flowing across his console. "The humans have primitive weapons, chemical projectiles and simple explosives, nothing that can pierce Vrakthar scales." Vrex nodded slowly. "Still, I want reconnaissance teams on the ground before we begin the main assault. I want to understand these creatures. I want to know how they think, how they fight, how they die." "As you command," Threx said. "I have already selected 12 of our finest hunters for the mission. They will land in different regions across the planet and gather intelligence. The humans will never know they are being watched." The first reconnaissance pod landed in a region the humans called Africa. Hunter First Class Krath emerged from his vessel under the cover of night, his 6 eyes adjusting instantly to the darkness. The air was warm and thick, filled with strange sounds and stranger smells. He activated his stealth field and began moving through what his scanner identified as a savanna ecosystem. Krath had hunted on 12 worlds. He had killed creatures 10 times his size and tracked prey across frozen wastelands and burning deserts. He was confident, perhaps too confident, as he moved through the tall grass. His scanner showed numerous life forms nearby, but nothing that registered as a significant threat. Just animals, simple creatures driven by instinct. He did not notice the eyes watching him from the darkness. He did not hear the soft pad of heavy paws on the dry earth. The Pride had been tracking him for 20 minutes, ever since he had entered their territory. The lions had never seen anything like him, but they knew a competitor when they smelled one, and they knew what to do with competitors. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Krath had exactly enough time to register surprise before 400 kilograms of angry lioness slammed into his back. His stealth field flickered and died as he hit the ground. He tried to rise, but another lion was on him, jaws clamping around his forearm with enough force to crack his supposedly impenetrable scales. The Pride worked together with perfect coordination, each animal knowing its role without any visible communication. They had been doing this for millions of years, hunting together, killing together. They had taken down elephants, buffalo, and now they would take down this strange new creature. Krath managed to kill one of them with a wild slash of his claws, but there were too many. He had never faced anything like this, predators that fought as a unit, that anticipated his movements, that never gave up. His distress beacon activated automatically as his life signs began to fail. The second reconnaissance team landed in a region called Australia. Hunter Vess had studied the scans carefully and felt nothing but contempt for the local wildlife. The creatures here were small, far smaller than the mighty beasts of other worlds she had conquered. She stepped out of her pod and began walking toward what appeared to be a human settlement in the distance. She made it approximately 300 meters before she felt something brush against her ankle. She looked down and saw a small brown snake slithering away through the underbrush. She almost laughed. Such a tiny creature, barely longer than her forearm. She had fought serpents on other worlds that were 20 meters long and thick as tree trunks. 10 minutes later, Vess could no longer feel her legs. 20 minutes after that, she could no longer breathe. The inland taipan's venom was not designed for Vrakhthar physiology, but it did not need to be. Evolution had crafted it to kill with brutal efficiency, and it worked just as well on alien scales as it did on mammalian skin. Her distress beacon joined Krath's in the emergency queue. The third team landed in a region called the Pacific Ocean. Hunter Drax was an aquatic specialist, and he looked forward to exploring this new environment. The water was warm and clear, filled with colorful creatures that scattered at his approach. He dove deeper, his gills filtering the oxygen-rich liquid with ease. Drax had conquered entire ocean worlds. He had battled creatures with tentacles that could crush submarines and teeth that could bite through titanium. He was completely unprepared for the great white shark that hit him at 40 kilometers per hour from directly below. The shark was not trying to eat him, not at first. It was testing him, trying to determine if he was prey. But when Drax fought back, when he slashed at the shark with his claws, everything changed. Blood filled the water, and suddenly there were more sharks, drawn by the scent from kilometers away. They came in waves, each one taking a bite and retreating, wearing him down through sheer persistence. When Drax finally stopped moving, there were 17 sharks circling what remained of him. His distress beacon had long since gone silent. Commander Vrex received the reports with growing disbelief. 3 of his finest hunters, dead within hours of landing, not killed by humans, but by the other creatures that shared their world. He pulled up the biological data on Earth's wildlife and began reading more carefully. What he found disturbed him deeply. This planet was not what he had expected. It was not a peaceful garden world where soft humans had evolved in safety. It was a death world, a crucible of evolutionary violence that had been producing predators for billions of years. Every ecosystem was filled with creatures designed to kill, from the massive lions and sharks to microscopic organisms that could dissolve living tissue from the inside out. "How do the humans survive here?" Threx asked, his voice uncertain for the first time since Vrex had known him. "That," Vrex said slowly, "is an excellent question, one I think we need to answer before we proceed any further." He ordered the remaining reconnaissance teams to focus exclusively on human settlements. He wanted to know everything about these creatures who had somehow risen to dominance on a world that seemed designed to kill them. He had a growing suspicion that the Vrakhthar had made a terrible mistake in coming here. Hunter 4th Class Emrek was the luckiest of the reconnaissance teams. He had landed in a region called Siberia, and the cold had kept most of the local predators dormant. He spent 3 days observing a small human village from a distance, recording everything he saw and transmitting it back to the fleet. What he observed made no sense to him. The humans kept animals, not as prisoners but as companions. Dogs that should have been competitors for food instead lived in their homes and followed them everywhere. Cats that could have been prey instead slept on their beds and ate from their hands. Even the livestock seemed to accept human dominance without resistance. "They have domesticated the predators," Emrek reported. "The wolves that once hunted them now serve them. The cats that once competed with them now depend on them. They have somehow convinced these creatures to abandon their natural instincts and become loyal to humans." Commander Vrex listened to this report with a cold feeling spreading through his primary heart. Domestication was not unknown in the galaxy, but it was rare and difficult. Most species managed to tame 1 or 2 other creatures over the course of their history. The humans had apparently done it dozens of times, with predators, prey, and everything in between. "Continue observing," Vrex ordered. "I want to know how they did this. I want to know everything." Emrek continued watching. He saw the humans hunt, using the dogs to track prey and flush it into the open. He saw them work together with a coordination that reminded him uncomfortably of the lions that had killed Krath. He saw them share food and shelter, care for their young and their old, and communicate with an endless variety of sounds and gestures. On the 4th day, Emrek made a mistake. He got too close to the village, and one of the dogs caught his scent. The animal began barking, a sound that carried across the frozen landscape like an alarm. Within minutes, the entire village was mobilizing. Men emerged from their homes carrying weapons, chemical projectile launchers that Emrek had been told were primitive and harmless. The first shot hit him in the shoulder, and Emrek learned that his briefing had been wrong. The projectile punched through his scales like they were made of paper and embedded itself in his muscle tissue. The pain was extraordinary, worse than anything he had experienced in his career as a hunter. He tried to run, but the dogs were faster. They harried him, nipping at his heels and forcing him to turn and fight. And when he turned, the humans were there with their weapons, firing again and again with deadly accuracy. They worked together just like the dogs, each one covering the others, never giving him a clear target. Emrek killed 2 of the dogs and wounded one of the humans before he went down. As he lay dying in the snow, he watched the villagers approach with their weapons raised. They did not show fear. They did not show mercy. They simply looked at him with cold, calculating eyes, the eyes of predators who had encountered a new threat and dealt with it efficiently. His last transmission reached the fleet. They are not prey, they are predators, the apex predators of this world. Do not come here, do not. The transmission ended abruptly. Commander Vrek stood on the bridge of his warship and stared at the blue planet rotating slowly below. Of the 12 hunters he had sent to the surface, only 4 had survived long enough to return to orbit. And those 4 were changed, their confidence shattered, their certainty replaced by something that looked dangerously like fear. "Tell me everything," Vrex commanded. Hunter Vrath stepped forward. He had landed in a region called North America and had managed to avoid the local wildlife by staying in the mountains. "Commander, the humans are not what we expected. They are persistence predators." "Explain." "They do not chase prey at high speed like most predators. They follow it. They track it for hours, sometimes days, never letting it rest, never letting it escape. They use their superior endurance to exhaust their prey, running it to death. No creature on this planet can outrun a determined human over long distances." Subcommander Threx made a dismissive sound. "We are faster than humans. We can maintain pursuit speed for 12 minutes, Vrath interrupted. "I checked our physiology data. We can sprint for 12 minutes before we need to rest. Humans can run for hours. They sweat to cool themselves, while we must stop and pant like prey animals. If they decided to hunt us using their traditional methods, they would simply follow us until we collapsed from exhaustion." The bridge fell silent. Vrex looked at his officers and saw the same uncomfortable realization spreading across their faces. They were used to being the hunters, the ones who chased and killed. The idea of being chased, of being worn down, of being prey, was almost incomprehensible. "There is more," said Hunter Kreth, who had landed in a region called India. "The humans have a capacity for violence that exceeds anything in our records. They do not just kill for food or territory. They kill for ideas, for beliefs, for revenge. Their history is written in blood." He activated a display showing images and text from human historical records. In their last major conflict, which they call World War II, over 70 million humans died. They killed each other with industrial efficiency, using weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. And when it was over, they built even more powerful weapons, weapons that could sterilize entire continents. "Why would they do this?" Threx asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because they could," Kreth said. "Because they are predators who have conquered every other predator on their world. They have no natural enemies left, so they fight each other. They have turned their predatory instincts inward, and the result is a species that has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history." Commander Vrex felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. He felt doubt. The Vrakthar had always won because they were stronger, faster, better armored than their prey. But these humans had none of those advantages, and they had still risen to dominate the most dangerous planet Vrex had ever encountered. "Show me their weapons," he said. The display changed, showing human military technology, chemical projectile weapons that could fire dozens of rounds per second, explosive devices that could level buildings, vehicles that could cross any terrain, and aircraft that could fly faster than sound. And at the top, the weapons they had built to fight each other, nuclear bombs that released the energy of a small sun. They created these to kill each other, Vrex said slowly. What do you think they will create to kill us? No one answered. We need to attack now, Threx said finally. Before they know we are here, before they have time to prepare, we can overwhelm them with superior numbers and— They already know we are here, Hunter Vrath interrupted. I monitored their communications. They detected our reconnaissance pods entering their atmosphere. They know exactly where each one landed. They have been tracking us the entire time. That is impossible, Threx said. Our stealth technology is based on hiding from other species' sensor technology, Vrex said. We designed it to fool the detection systems of civilized worlds. But these humans track each other across empty wilderness using nothing but footprints and bent grass. They can smell fear and read lies in facial expressions. They domesticated wolves by learning to think like wolves. Do you really believe our technology can fool creatures like that? The emergency session of the United Nations Security Council convened at 3 a.m. New York time. Every seat was filled, and the room hummed with tension. On the screens that lined the walls, satellite imagery showed the Vrakthar fleet in high orbit, 17 warships arranged in a perfect sphere around the planet. Secretary General Maria Santos stood at the podium, her face calm despite the fear that churned in her stomach. Ladies and gentlemen, you have all read the reports. 12 days ago, unidentified objects entered our atmosphere and landed at various locations around the world. We have recovered 4 of these objects and the remains of their occupants. The analysis is complete. She pressed a button and the screens changed to show images of the Vrakthar. Gasps filled the room. The creatures were terrifying, massive armored predators with claws and fangs and too many eyes. They looked like something from a nightmare, designed by evolution to kill. We have named them Vrakthar, based on symbols found in their equipment, Santos continued. They are approximately 3 meters tall, weigh an average of 400 kilograms, and possess natural armor that can withstand small arms fire. They appear to be a spacefaring species with technology significantly more advanced than our own. How did they die? Asked the Russian ambassador, his voice steady. Santos allowed herself a small smile. 3 were killed by wild animals, lions, sharks, and a snake. 1 was killed by villagers in Siberia using hunting rifles. The rest either escaped or remain unaccounted for. Murmurs spread through the room. The Chinese delegate leaned forward. You are telling us that these aliens, with their advanced technology and natural weapons, were killed by animals and farmers. That is correct, Santos said. It appears they significantly underestimated the dangers of our planet. They came here expecting easy prey. They found something very different. The American ambassador spoke up. What are our options? Can we negotiate? Unknown. We have attempted to communicate with the fleet, but they have not responded. Based on the equipment we recovered, they appear to be a conquest-oriented species. Their technology includes restraint devices clearly designed for prisoners. Then we fight, said the Russian ambassador. We have nuclear weapons, we can. Using nuclear weapons in orbit would create massive electromagnetic pulses and radioactive debris, the American ambassador interrupted. We would destroy our own satellites and potentially irradiate portions of the planet. It is not a viable first option. Then what do you suggest? The Russian asked. Santos looked around the room at the assembled leaders of humanity. For the first time in recorded history, there was no argument about borders or resources or ideology. Every face showed the same determination, the same ancient predatory instinct that had carried their ancestors through ice ages and famines and countless wars. I suggest we show them who they are dealing with, she said. Commander Vrex had been debating with his officers for 6 hours when the first transmission came from the planet. It was primitive, using electromagnetic waves that his communications officer had to adjust their receivers to detect. But the message was clear enough. Attention, unknown vessels. This is Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations, speaking on behalf of the human species. You have entered our space without permission and landed reconnaissance forces on our world. Several of your people have died. We do not wish for more death. Please respond. Vrex stared at the display. The humans had not only detected his fleet, they had accurately identified its purpose and were now demanding to negotiate. He had never encountered a primitive species with such audacity. Should we respond, Commander? Vrex asked. Vrex considered his options. The traditional Vrakthar response would be to ignore the message and begin the orbital bombardment. But his hunters were dead, killed by this planet's wildlife and its inhabitants. He had studied the humans' history of war and seen what they were capable of. Perhaps negotiation was worth exploring. Open a channel, he ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the human leader. She was smaller than Vrex had expected, barely reaching the height of a Vrakthar child. Her skin was soft and unarmored, her eyes only 2 in number. She should have looked pathetic. Instead, she looked directly into the camera with an expression that Vrex recognized instantly. It was the look of a predator. I am Commander Vrex of the Vrakthar Dominion, he said. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. Your species will serve us, or you will be eliminated. There is no negotiation. The human woman did not flinch. Commander Vrex, I appreciate your directness. Let me be equally direct. We have examined the remains of your scouts. We know your physical capabilities and limitations. We have analyzed your technology and found it impressive but not invincible. She paused and her expression hardened. We also know that 4 of your 12 scouts were killed within hours of landing, not by our military but by animals and civilians. Your species came to our world expecting prey. You found predators instead. You dare threaten the Vrakthar, Vrex growled. I am not threatening you, Commander. I am educating you. Let me tell you about humanity. Santos pressed a button, and images began appearing on Vrex's display. We evolved on this planet over millions of years, competing with creatures far more dangerous than ourselves. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We survived through intelligence, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to give up. The images showed human history, cave paintings of hunts, ancient warriors with primitive weapons, medieval armies clashing on blood-soaked fields. We conquered every predator on our world. We drove some to extinction and domesticated others. We bent this planet to our will through nothing but persistence and creativity. The images shifted to more recent history. World War I, World War II, nuclear explosions blooming like deadly flowers. When we ran out of predators to fight, we fought each other. We developed weapons of unimaginable destruction, not to fight aliens, but to kill our own kind. We have spent our entire existence at war. Santos leaned forward, her voice dropping to something almost intimate. Commander Vrex, you have given us something we have not had in a long time. You have given us a common enemy. For the first time in our history, humanity is completely united. Every nation, every military, every scientist is now working together with a single purpose, to ensure the survival of our species. She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You should be afraid. Commander Vrex ended the transmission and sat in silence for a long moment. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. The bridge of the warship hummed with tension. Commander, Vrex said finally, the humans are bluffing. They have primitive technology. They cannot reach us in orbit. We can simply begin the bombardment and— Can we? Vrex interrupted. He pulled up a display showing the planet below. Look at them. In the 12 days since our scouts landed, they have mobilized every military force on the planet. They are building new weapons, improving existing ones. Their scientific teams are working without rest. He zoomed in on various locations. They have relocated their civilian populations away from likely target zones. They have hardened their communication systems and distributed their command structures. They are preparing for a war they know they cannot win, and they are doing it with an efficiency that should terrify you. They are prey animals showing threat behavior, Threx said dismissively. It means nothing. They are not prey animals, Hunter Vrath spoke up. I spent 3 days watching them. They are predators, the most dangerous kind of predators. They think like us, but they are more creative, more adaptable, more persistent. They domesticated wolves by outthinking wolves. They killed megafauna by outenduring them. They conquered every other species on their planet through sheer refusal to accept defeat. What are you suggesting? Threx demanded. That we retreat, that we the Vrakthar flee from soft-skinned primitives. I am suggesting that we reconsider our approach, Vrex said. The standard conquest protocol assumes we are dealing with prey species that will submit once they understand our power, but these humans will not submit. They would rather die fighting than live as slaves, and if we kill them all, we gain nothing. A dead world is worthless. Before Threx could respond, an alarm sounded across the bridge. The tactical officer's voice was sharp with surprise. Commander, we are detecting launches from the planet's surface. Multiple launches, hundreds of them. Vrex turned to the main display. The blue planet below was suddenly covered with white trails, rockets climbing into the sky from every continent. What are they? Unclear, Commander. Some appear to be orbital insertion vehicles. Others are. The computer identifies them as nuclear weapons. They are attacking us, Threx laughed. Their primitive weapons cannot reach us at this altitude. They will burn up in the... No, the tactical officer interrupted. They are not targeting us directly. They are targeting orbital space around us. They are creating a debris field. Vrex understood immediately. The humans were sacrificing their own satellites, their own space infrastructure, to create a cloud of high-velocity debris that would shred anything trying to enter or exit orbit. They were trapping the Vrakthar fleet in place while simultaneously denying them easy access to the planet's surface. And the nuclear weapons, he asked. They appear to be detonating at high altitude, generating electromagnetic pulses. Our shields are holding, but our sensor resolution is degrading. We are going blind. A new transmission came in from the planet. Secretary General Santos appeared on the display, her expression unchanged. Commander Vrex, as you can see, we are not bluffing. You are now surrounded by a debris field that will make any landing attempt extremely hazardous. Your sensors are compromised, and we are just getting started. You are destroying your own infrastructure, Vrex said. Your communications, your navigation, your weather monitoring, all gone. We can rebuild, Santos said simply. We are very good at rebuilding. It is one of the things that makes us dangerous. You can destroy our cities and we will build new ones. You can kill our leaders and new ones will rise. You can burn our civilization to the ground and our children will rebuild it from the ashes. We are stubborn that way. She leaned forward. But you cannot rebuild. Your fleet is far from home. Your supplies are limited. And now you cannot land safely to resupply. Every day you stay in orbit is a day your position grows weaker and ours grows stronger. We are patient, Commander. We can wait. The transmission ended. Vrex stared at the blank screen, processing what had just happened. In a matter of hours, the humans had completely changed the tactical situation. They had sacrificed decades of technological progress to trap their enemy, gambling everything on their ability to outlast the Vrakthar. Commander, the tactical officer said, the debris field is expanding. It will reach our position in approximately 6 hours. Move the fleet, Vrex ordered. Take us to a higher orbit and get me a damage assessment. I want to know exactly what our situation is." The assessment was not encouraging. The electromagnetic pulses had damaged several systems, and the debris field made any approach to the planet extremely dangerous. Landing troops would be possible, but casualties would be high. And once on the ground, those troops would face not only the humans but all the other predators that called Earth home. "We can still win," Threx insisted. "We have orbital weapons. We can bombard their cities, destroy their infrastructure, force them to surrender." "And then what?" Vrex asked. "We occupy a radioactive wasteland populated by survivors who will never stop fighting. Every child becomes a soldier. Every home becomes a fortress. They have already shown they would rather destroy everything than surrender. What exactly would we be conquering?" "The principle of the thing," Threx said, but his voice lacked conviction. Vrex made his decision. It was not an easy one. The Vrakthar had never retreated from a conquest, never admitted defeat. But Vrex had not survived this long by letting pride override judgment. "Open a channel to the human leader," he ordered. Secretary General Santos appeared on the display. She looked tired but alert, ready for whatever came next. "Secretary General," Vrex said, "the Vrakthar do not negotiate. We do not retreat, but we also do not waste resources on battles that cannot be won. Your world is more than we anticipated." "Commander, we are leaving, but I want you to understand something. The galaxy is vast, and there are many species out there who will eventually find your world. Not all of them will be as reasonable as I am. You have made an enemy today, whether you intended to or not." Santos smiled that predator's smile again. "Commander Vrex, we have been making enemies since we climbed down from the trees. We are very good at it, and we are even better at surviving them." The Vrakthar fleet departed Earth orbit 3 days later. Commander Vrex watched the blue planet shrink in the viewscreen, feeling something he had never experienced before: respect for a prey species. No, he corrected himself, not prey. Humans were not prey. They were competitors, fellow predators in a universe that suddenly seemed much more dangerous than before. "Commander," Subcommander Threx said, "how will we explain this to the High Council? The Vrakthar have never retreated from a conquest." Vrex considered the question carefully. "We will tell them the truth. We discovered a death world populated by apex predators who have been fighting each other for their entire existence. They domesticated wolves, killed megafauna with sharpened sticks, and developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet. When we arrived, they united instantly and sacrificed their own infrastructure to trap us. They are too dangerous to conquer and too stubborn to enslave. The Council will not be pleased." "The Council does not have to fight them," Vrex replied. "I do, and I am telling you, Threx, those creatures are not like anything we have encountered. They look at the universe and see only challenges to be overcome. They will not stay on their world forever. One day they will come for us." On Earth, the celebrations lasted for weeks. Humanity had faced its first alien contact and won, not through superior technology or strength, but through the same qualities that had made them masters of their world: intelligence, cooperation, and sheer, bloody-minded determination. Secretary General Santos addressed the United Nations 1 month after the Vrakthar departure. The assembly hall was packed, every nation represented, every seat filled. The debris field was already being cleaned up, and plans were underway to rebuild the satellite network. But more importantly, everything had changed. "We learned something important from this experience," Santos said. "We learned that we are not alone in the universe. We learned that there are species out there who see us as prey, as resources to be exploited. And we learned that we can stand against them." She looked around the room at the assembled leaders of humanity. "But we also learned something about ourselves. For all our differences, for all our conflicts, we are one species. We came together against a common enemy in a way we have never managed before. We proved that when humanity unites, nothing can stand against us." The applause was thunderous. I am proposing a new initiative, Santos continued when the noise died down. The United Earth Defense Force, a military organization that answers to all of humanity, dedicated to protecting our world from any threat, wherever it may come from. We have seen what we can accomplish together. Let us not wait for the next crisis to remember that lesson. The vote was unanimous. In the years that followed, humanity changed. The petty conflicts that had defined their history faded in importance. Oh, there were still disagreements, still arguments about resources and borders and ideology. But beneath it all, there was a new understanding. They were not alone. The universe was watching, and they would be ready. Dr. Sarah Chen led the team that reverse-engineered Vrakthar technology. Within 5 years, humanity had developed its first faster-than-light drive. Within 10, they had colonized Mars and established outposts throughout the solar system. Within 20, they had encountered other species and built the beginnings of a trade network. The stories spread through the galaxy like wildfire. A death world, the other species whispered. A planet so dangerous that its dominant species had evolved to hunt everything, including each other. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special senses. They survived through persistence and intelligence and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. They called them many things: the endless hunters, the pack predators, the stubborn ones. But the name that stuck, the name that every species came to know and respect and fear, was simply humans. Commander Vrex lived long enough to see humanity's first diplomatic vessel arrive at the Vrakthar homeworld. He was old by then, retired from active command, but he insisted on being present for the meeting. He wanted to see them again, these creatures who had turned him back when nothing else in the galaxy could. The human ambassador was a young woman named Elena Santos, granddaughter of the Secretary General who had faced him down 40 years earlier. She had the same eyes, Vrex noticed, the same predator's gaze that had haunted his dreams for decades. "Commander Vrex," she said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. "My grandmother spoke of you often. She said you were the first alien to understand what humanity really was." Vrex took her hand carefully, aware of how fragile human bones were compared to Vrakthar scales. "I was the first to be wise enough to retreat. There is a difference." Elena smiled, and it was the same smile her grandmother had worn, the smile of a predator at rest but never truly relaxed. "Perhaps, but that wisdom saved your fleet and possibly your species. If you had attacked, we would have fought. We would have lost eventually, but we would have taken as many of you with us as possible. The war would have devastated both our peoples. And instead, we are here to discuss a trade agreement. Your species has technology we want. Our species has something you need: creativity, adaptability, the ability to thrive in environments that would kill most other species. Together, we could accomplish great things." Vrex studied her for a long moment. "You would ally with the species that tried to conquer you." "We would ally with anyone who treats us with respect," Elena said. "Humanity does not hold grudges, well, not forever anyway. We are pragmatic. You came to our world as enemies, but you left as something else. Not friends exactly, but not enemies either. Something in between." "Competitors," Vrex said. Elena nodded. "Exactly. And competitors can become partners when it benefits both sides. The universe is vast, Commander. There is room enough for both our species to thrive." The treaty was signed 3 months later. It was the first of many. Humanity had learned that they were not alone in the universe, but they had also learned that they could stand as equals with any species they encountered. They were not prey. They were not conquerors. They were something the galaxy had never seen before: predators who chose to cooperate. And the universe learned what apex really meant. It did not mean being the strongest or the fastest or the best armed. It meant being the most adaptable, the most persistent, the most willing to do whatever it took to survive. It meant never giving up, never accepting defeat, never stopping until you had won or died trying. It meant being human. In the end, the Vrakthar had taught humanity something valuable, and humanity had taught the Vrakthar something in return. The universe was dangerous, full of threats and challenges and species that would destroy you if given the chance. But it was also full of possibilities, of allies waiting to be found and wonders waiting to be discovered. Humanity reached for the stars with the same determination that had carried them through ice ages and famines and world wars. They built ships that could cross galaxies and stations that orbited distant suns. They made friends and enemies and everything in between. They fought when they had to and negotiated when they could and never, ever stopped moving forward. They were humanity, the apex predators of a death world, and the universe would never be the same.